name's Jessica Marsolek. I'm a social worker by trade, and I've worked with the Huntington's community now 18 years in a variety of roles in the United States, mostly in Minnesota, but now nationwide. I work for HDSA, and I now oversee all of the community service programs for the organization, which means 120 social workers, 100 support groups monthly, in person, online, and then our youth and young adult programs and disability services. So I've worked in a variety of roles, done a lot of things, met a lot of wonderful, lovely people. But we just wanted to also say not to our counselors. We're not fertility specialists, but we're going to go over a variety of different options to family planning.
Thank you, Jessica. My name's Matthew. How are you doing? So I just sort of introduced myself previously, but partner of HDYO family member. I have some experience in having children. My son was from IVF DG, so we'll talk about that a little bit too. As Jessica said, we're not specialists, so it's best to go to your local one and see what they can do. Okay, let's get started, shall we? That's right. Definitely. Firstly, just to say, before we begin, probably, it's, this is a very emotional topic, and sort of, I think if you were in the session just before with Charles, he explained beautifully. It's so beautiful segue. Yeah. I was like, oh, thanks, Charles, appreciate that. I'll just copy exactly what you said, but I'll do it. Yeah, we'll have some time at the end for some questions. I know we've got half an hour, but we're going to try and make sure there's plenty of time. And also, just to say, each region has different varying access to these options. That's all right. Okay, so these are the kind of main options for having children if you're impacted by HD. You've got conceiving naturally, prenatal testing, also called CVS, and we've got pre-implantation genetic testing, they call it now, egg, sperm, embryo donation, and we've got adoption and fostering as well. You could say also not having children would be an option, but that's kind of a bit obvious. I left it off. So, conceiving naturally, I need it. I don't know why I keep leaving it everywhere. So conceiving naturally would mean essentially it depends on what your risk currently is. But essentially it would be if you've tested positive already, like I have, for example, I had a child, that child would have a 50% risk. Which most of you, assuming most of you are aware of the risk of Huntington's and how that sort of works. It's kind of explained here a little bit. This guy's got Huntington's, he doesn't, and there's like a 50% chance that that child would have Huntington's, and 2 out of 4 options would lead to Huntington's. So that's the basic genetics of it. If you haven't yet tested, don't know your status, so you'd be 50% risk yourself, and in theory, if you have a child, there'd be about 25% risk, but that's just like, that changes depending on what happens to you. It's all about what happens to you then. So if you then decide you want to get tested, and you test positive, then you're 100%, and the baby would be 50%. And the other way around, you would go from 0% if you test negative. And yeah, so this would mean that your child's at risk. This option is available to everybody. And in terms of prenatal testing, CVS, this starts the same way. This involves a natural pregnancy start, and then it goes when it's into the very start of the pregnancy, essentially the first weeks of pregnancy. You could then make the decision to have some tests done, which would be like a needle here. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, you're unsure about something. So you would go for the clinic and look at that as an option. They would do a test. There is a risk on that, which the clinic would go over that risk. There is a risk that the pregnancy could be terminated at that point anyway. Usually on this option, prenatal testing, it's if you test positive, if the baby tests positive, then usually it would be agreed that you would terminate pregnancy. And if the baby tests negative, then you know the baby's not at risk. Continue that pregnancy in that sense. That's the kind of like thinking around that. Just to clarify here, so yeah, if the baby tests negative, then you can continue the pregnancy. You would know that that child, when it comes out, would be HT3, would be biologically yours too. Come on in. He's not sure. It's okay. He's looking for food. If the baby tests positive, it's more difficult. This is where things get more challenging when doing the prenatal testing. Instead, you have to come. Usually, it's agreed with the clinic that you would terminate that pregnancy, which can be very challenging emotionally to go through. Think about that. So it's just something to think about. That maybe that option might not work for you. See. And that one's available for testing positive for those who already know their status. So if you test positive, you can do this option. There is another form of this for those who are at risk, which is known as exclusion testing. But it's a bit, it has a few more steps to it. It involves like, you need to have some of people's blood, like your grandparents' blood, or those at risk in the family, your parents' blood, and things like this. So that might not be feasible. They might not be alive, for example. They might not have the blood test taken while they were alive. But it also doesn't really give you a clear, definitive answer. It kind of like tells you the child might have a bit of risk, or might not have might have a stronger chance or a higher, lower chance of having it. Right? So they won't actually. It doesn't give you a clear answer. Certainly not as clear as if you know that you're prenatal testing. Already, that will give you a very clear answer, if that makes sense. Next one is PGT. This is the one that me and my wife did. So this is an option that you take an individual eggs, an individual sperm from the couple, and you put those in an embryo, and they're fertilized in a lab, and then they're then tested for HD, along with other genetic modifications, of course. And any that have HD will be removed from the choice, and they'll kind of keep these in the lab and they'll grow them on a bit, and then eventually, whichever embryo is like the healthiest and strongest out of those that doesn't have HD, they would then try to put that to the lady for hopeful for pregnancy. That process sort of looks like this. Most places, it's usually now. Probably should have added one for waiting, because usually, yeah. When you request a referral, I mean, it depends where you are in the world, but I can tell you from in like UK, it's like a long time to wait after the referral. So I think it was like a year and a half maybe before we actually started the PGD. So yeah, there was a long wait right there. I should put that in, but okay, right there. There's a long wait. There can be a long wait. It depends where you are. It depends what you do. But there can be It can, yes. Yeah, so you'll start the process. That's when you start that cycle. And then during that time, you'll be getting the lady. This option is very difficult for female. There's a lot more involved. They have to do daily injections during that kind of like egg retrieval time. So they want to. The goal is trying to get as many eggs as possible on that part of the process. And then they're kind of like, once they've kind of put those embryos together, they then do the testing. And then it is at the end of that they do the transfer back into the female for pregnancy. But it doesn't always work like that, which is what this describes here. It's really this option can take tries, and it still might not work. It's really just look at the draw, how long it takes, and whether it could work first time, it could work second time, could work third time, it might not work ever at all. That's quite emotional for people to deal with. So here you can see, like, usually what happens from my own experience with my wife, they tend to get to know the lady's body during that first round. So they're not really used to that particular individual's body, and then they see how that body then reacts in the second round. They usually get more eggs in the second round. That was what happened for my wife. We had about, we only had only a few actually that were an option during that first one. Not many eggs at all. And then the next time we got about 30 eggs or something like this, with those more. So yeah, it could be a real roller coaster, this option. But if it's so it's very expensive as well if you're going to try to do this yourself. It varies in cost, but in the UK it's about, at the moment, about £7,000 or £8,000. So that's for what it.
The finding, I've heard on how many cycles and how long it takes.
Yeah.
There's a variety of ways that people pay for it.
They're wrong.
They love each other, they support a couple that's trying to go through this process. In the States, we have HDYO, which is an organization created that themselves went through the process and didn't realize how expensive it was, how they wanted to have other couples to have access to it. So they've now, I think, for 100 babies. And some employers do have that insurance built into their insurance, but it's not very common.
In the European countries and things like this, usually a lot of those countries do have it available on their national health service. And it's something to check out. Definitely, that's definitely one to check out with your local fertility specialist and see if that's true for you guys or not.
I always say that start asking those questions about your options for paying for it early on, because you could apply for something and it may take a year, just to even go through the process with insurance or whatever way you're going to go about paying for it. It may take a long time to do that, and then you start this, and then it could be another year or two. So time is ticking, and
yes,
for fertility and reproductive health, it's important to know what your options are.
Very true. Yeah. And so obviously, if this option is successful, after all of that, then it would mean that your child would not have the risk of HD, and would be biologically yours. And this option is available to those who've tested positive, so you need to know whether you need to get tested yourself in that sense to know this option, to use this option. But there is another form which is called non-disclosure PGT for those that are at risk. That option, again, ask your local clinic about that. And I'm going to pass over to Jessica now for the next two. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next two options I'm more familiar with, and so I'm going to share about these two egg, sperm, and embryo donations. These are options for people that are not related to you. You may not know. They're options that people outside of the HD community use for inability to get pregnant naturally themselves. It's something where you can literally look through a book and pick somebody that looks like you, like you can pick out hair color, you can pick out somebody who is highly educated, you can pick things out. So that is an option. It's not as expensive as some of the options we've already talked about, but it's an option. The baby would not be at risk for HD. They could have other things though, so that's something to also consider. They could also have their own genetic background of other things. It would not be biologically the affected parent's child, and so if that's important to you, that's something to consider. So this option would be available to, it's open to the general public, but if you've tested positive, if you're at risk, or if you're someone trying to conceive a child without a partner, that is an option as well. Adoption and fostering. So adoption and fostering can be any age child, so it could be, we oftentimes think of babies being adopted, but there are a lot of, my husband and I adopted older children, and so I'm of the experience having adopted older children, but there's all age children that are available for adoption. Babies are much more wanted and more difficult to adopt, and so it does cost money, and it does take a lot of process to get through that process as well. Fostering is a little different in that usually depending upon the age of the child or the programs where you live, there may be benefits that come with adopting older children, and sometimes the government actually pays you to care for the children, because a lot of times children age 12 and up will age out of the system and not get families, and so there's a lot of programs to support adoption of older children. So that's something that I'm more familiar with, and very similar to HD, but my husband has a rare cancer that is 50-50 chance of inheriting as well, and so we chose that option for our family, and we have two lovely children, 15 and 19, and they thank us almost every day for adopting them, and they're beautiful. So they're oftentimes at events and at conferences and things like that. They're great volunteers for HD, so it's a great option. We always joke in our family, adoption's a great option. But we always, a lot of times, think about adopting babies. And so just knowing that when you do adopt older, you oftentimes have more information. So it's also something to consider that when you have a baby, you also don't know their background. You don't know a lot of information. When you adopt older, you get all of their medical records. You get their parents' medical records. You get to sometimes meet their teachers and get to meet people in their world. And so it's a little different. But it's also location specific as far as what resources are there to support you after adoption. A lot of times when you adopt babies, there isn't that support afterwards, whereas our family has gotten a lot of resources and support after. So this is an option for anybody. Being impacted by HD could impact your application. So depending upon it took us about 6 months to go through our home study, and they ask you about everything and anything. They dig into your family history, who has, chemical health issues, who has this, who has anything. My husband's health had to come up in that we had to have a doctor write a letter saying that his illness is not going to impact him being a parent right now, and so you might have to have a doctor write a letter on your behalf. So those are some things to consider when you're literally getting investigated to be a parent. Something that first option, naturally, you don't have to do, but it gets harder and harder as you look at the other options sometimes. So there's some barrier, but it's also not impossible. Oh my gosh, I turned it off. Okay. So the child would not be at risk of HD. If they did, that'd be really weird. But generally, if that information is known, it would be disclosed. You really get all their medical records and anything that would be information that you could make a decision with, and they wouldn't be biologically either parent either, if that's important to you. So it's available to test positive, at risk, anyone really wanting to have a child with or without a partner. Okay. And I'm guessing there's people in this room that also probably can answer some questions as well that have been through some of the things we talked about too. So, Julie, do you have a question?
Yeah. Do you know when the Help Cure HD grant opens again? I've been like stalking the website for the last year and no luck with it opening.
I've stalked their website as well for people. There's, I believe, 2 times a year that it's open, and it's like a window. So the application grant that I mentioned for Help Cure HD, they do receive a lot of applications, and there is a contact that I can give that is on their website too, that you can just reach out to her and ask her when that window is. Have you did? Okay. Yeah, it's like posted on their website, and I've stalked their website too, trying to figure it out. But there is a window, and it takes about 6 months to hear back from.
About 6 months to hear back?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you apply for the grant. Yep. Yeah. That's a great option. I have a friend right now going through the process with them right now, and it's wonderful. We used to not have any options, and to be able to fund it for couples that want it, it's awesome. Yeah.
If you choose CVS, you have to make sure that you stay within the window of the abortion laws? Or is it possible that the doctor says, okay, we do this first and you can decide after this?
I'm going to say in the United States, it would depend where you are. It's very specific to where you are location-wise. Where I live, you would have more freedom than other places in my part of the country. But I don't know if you know.
No, I don't know. Sorry. But yeah, just speak with your local fertility clinic on that. So yeah, just to see how long it would have to be for you. What country are you from? Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's very location specific for.
Why is there a long time?
Because
Yeah.
in Czech Republic, I was on PGD and the waiting from the request to it was I think 3 months.
Yeah, it completely depends on the country and how that National Health Service was it from the government health service? Was it covered in Czech Republic? Partially covered. Okay. Yeah. 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 It's just like in the UK, like the service there is really struggling financially, let's say. So it's just getting longer and longer to get that done. It's probably even longer now than it was when I did it. So it really just depends where you are in the world, and how long that wait will be. But just be kind of prepared for that wait. Potentially there might be a length of time. So just to know, like Jessica said, like, you know,
I really encourage
ticking.
information seeking early on.
Yeah.
Because then you at least know the information so that when you are ready to make that next step, then you're prepared.
Erica?
I was going to add for timing. There it's on based off your cycle, so that's why it takes a long time also to do the IVF process, the PGP, PDD.
Yes, once you start the cycle, yeah, takes time, yeah. Yeah. To be in sync, yeah. Yeah.
Adoption side, so did you adopt when they were big or young?
6 and 10. Mm-hmm. So we have 9 years.
Do you bring up PhD, was that any affected in their decision?
Bring up what?
Like HD, and would that be or like a barrier that you have to kind of?
So my husband doesn't have HD. He has another genetic disease. So it's. I was just saying, like, for the family planning aspect, it's similar in that way. Our children's impact and is because of my work and the families that we love that have HD. So we talk about HD really openly. My kid was in kindergarten and he was telling the teacher about, Woody Guthrie, "This land is your land," and my son's going, "You know who sings this?" And so he's educating. So are you talking about my husband's genetic disease or?
I'm talking more about like, I guess, like in the United States,
Mhm.
like the state, like in their decision process, like would HD be kind of an issue? Thinking of like, if they're thinking of if this kid's gonna have this life and then
Yeah.
one of the parents has
Yeah.
this potential disease, is that, have you heard anything on that aspect?
I really think it would be similar to my husband's in that they would want to know more about it. They would also want you to consult a doctor to identify, so his life could be cut shorter than, most, but it doesn't mean he can't be a good father. And so there was a letter to that point where it's like there's a lot of unknown, but that it doesn't impact the fact that he would be a wonderful father, so, but we had to find a doctor to write a letter. So I think it would be similar in that regard.
That's great to hear other than them just,
Yeah, I don't think it would be a barrier. I think it's just something that would be acknowledged, just like alcoholism in a family or, different things that they're going to dig up that they want to know. They want to create this whole picture and then they determine, But I haven't heard, I know every family has stuff. I mean, every family does. So it just is acknowledged, I'd say. I've heard they have great benefits, so that's great to hear. That's worth sharing. That for sure. For sure. Yeah.
So I don't know how much, but like
Go for it.
thinking about planning for kids with that in like a long extension run of like someone who's at risk or even testifying and is negative, thinking about like the aspects of it and fully of like different situations and stuff. How did you guys kind of like decide like what did you do? Because there's a lot of aspects of it, like even if you have a kid and you have a great life and everything like that, they might have to have that role as a caregiver, even though if you have different plans and different things, but like, like how, of all those decisions and like guilty and like not feeling guilty, like
Not
I
wanting
don't know
to
where
be
the
a
question is
burden.
there, but like,
Not wanting to burden.
yeah, there's like a question there somewhere.
Can you repeat the question?
I think Gloria was asking, like, how do you make the decision? Like, yeah, like, how did we come to the decision that we chose personally in that sense? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, makes sense.
Is that right?
Knowing what the future may hold.
Maybe the future, yeah.
I mean, for us, me and my wife, when we got married, we were kind of talking. We did want to have children. We knew I was HD positive, so we had that information. But and at that time, we were living in the UK, so we had that the PGD available, and we went for that. But we because it was like available free on the NHS there on National Health Service, that was a major factor in us kind of making that decision for that one. I didn't want to have a child at risk, just because I work in HD a lot, and I kind of know that there's a chance that juvenile Huntington's can happen from a male, being passed down from a male who has the gene. So I kind of had that knowledge, and I thought there's a higher chance if I have a kid at risk then that they're going to have juvenile, and I'd feel terrible about that. So I didn't want to go down that road. So I wanted to try have a child without the risk of Huntington's if I could. Of course, there's the impact that's still there, and you can't really get rid of the impact of HD. It's always going to be there. But that's something that we can kind of help him with. He's 7 now. But it took, the whole process took time as well, and it was a pain in the butt, and just it's a roller coaster emotionally. We failed our first. We got very lucky on our second. We had only like one good embryo that was left after all of those tests we went through on the round 2. So, and then it was successful on that one. But we did actually try again. We wanted to try. We actually paid to try again because we wanted to have a second child if we could, and from the same way. But that didn't work out for us. And that's how it goes. But yeah, was that what you were hoping?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Do you want?
Were you kind of also saying, like, how can you bring a child into their, like, thinking that they might have to take care of you later on in life, like, that guilty feeling of burden?
Yeah,
So in that case, I would say, like, you can't, I feel like it's unfair to write that off, or, like, parenthood off, because there's so many things that are unknown. There's other illnesses, there's car accidents, anything could happen to any parent, and you can just kind of make sure that your support system is large enough to, if something were to happen, to take care of that, and, try to manage finances in your way for if something were to happen to lessen the burden, but I think, that's a valid.
As Charles said, it's completely your choice. What is right for you, go for that. What feels right for you, go for that. We're just providing the options here. Do what you want to do. Do what feels right for you. Any more question? Yeah.
There are proactive ways to go about HD, and there are ways to do things better than maybe others have. And so if you are able to, and I at lunch learned that you're a planner, if you're able to and willing to learn from professionals that have seen people do things well, they can help guide you on a path that's going to help set you up for success as a family, whether that be financially or, setting you up with the resources that, because, not everybody in HD is proactive, but there are a few families that have done some really good things, and we've learned from that. And so how can we then help set you up for success? So there are ways to do things better.
So do I have enough time just to touch on, like, how options can change too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, it's not as inspiring as Matt's story because he actually had a baby from it. But when I did the PGD, well, in Canada it's PGT-A and PGT-M. The M is for the Huntington's gene, and the A is for anything like trisomy, Down syndrome, etc. So we chose to do that because obviously we didn't want to have a child with Huntington's disease, and I heard about it at the first camp from Jeff Carroll. So that's what kind of drove my choice to do this, knowing that it was a possibility. We did have we were successful as far as having embryos, and we had 9, 3 of which were normal. We had one last one that wasn't tested in the first group, and unfortunately it tested that it was not suitable for transfer. I did also do this double blind so that you don't know which side. So we are currently a bit in a limbo. We have 6 on ice, but we don't know what they have. We don't know if it's Huntington's or trisomy, etc. So we are at the point where we can pull back the veil and see the results, or we can try different ways. So right now we've kind of pivoted from that, and we're doing IUI, which is like natural but assisted. And we, for lack of better word, they turkey baste you. So they insert the sperm into your uterus when you're ovulating, and with the hope of getting pregnant. Because we did have some male factor issues as well. Yeah, so we are right now doing IUI, and we do know the risk of that. But we were like, okay, it's either we know 50-50 this child could get Huntington's, or we pull back the veil and we have options of, do we insert a child with Huntington's or Down syndrome or trisomy, or any other slew of things. Yeah. Yes, which is hard, but yes. So there are still options that you can choose, even if, like, say, one doesn't work out. There's always more options.
Thank you all for joining.
We have to finish there, but thank you so much. You can ask us questions just anytime. We're here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a little break.